Good afternoon, and welcome to the Universal Radio Show with your hosts, Brenda L. Bates and Donnie Winter. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Universal Journeys Radio is about how spirituality intersects with nearly every other aspect of our lives, even when we do not see it or realize it. Creativity and expression are our connections to the spiritual energy many seek to understand, and our identity is forged through this process. Universal Journey seeks to help illuminate the different intersections between creativity, spirituality, and identity in order to empower and enlighten. Tonight, our topic is There's No Excuse to Not Be Creative, and our call-in number is 347-850-8292. Hello, Brenda, dear.
Hello, and welcome back.
I know, right? I slaughtered the beginning, forgive me. I got tongue-tied.
Hey, not a problem. That's no problem. You're used to the YouTube thing, and stuff like that, and I was like, you got it.
This is definitely true. Definitely a new type of creativity for me, participating in these radio shows, but I love it so far.
Good. So I hear that you have a poem to read.
I do. Since this show is centered on creativity, I wanted to start us off with getting our creative juices flowing, as you should. And I wanted to read a poem by a poet that I've just been introduced to. Her name is Meg Day, and she writes a lot of poetry that features nature imagery. So here it goes. It's called There's Snow in the West. There's snow in the west, and there's snow in the east, and there's snow in our beds icing the cabbage. Since you left me alone, the wasp nest swallowing the bulb and the porch light has gone leaden, and each night the asphalt is honeycombed in its half-lidded light, while the laundry, frozen stiff on the line, sways from its hinges like the moon flag that waves without wind. I am not praying. I'm longing. Please, let summer be a good shot, an untraceable track. Let the beautiful animal of this working-class winter loose its vice grip on your throat before the kill. The kettle is steaming the windows, lined with bubble wrap, and the peaches are ripening in their cans. Come home, come home. That is seriously one of my favorite poems. I find it to be so beautiful, and it does remind me of home. What do you think, Brenda?
Yeah, it does remind you of home, especially in the wintry home that we have right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Meg Day, I believe, if I remember correctly, grew up in California, and she ended up moving out of state. And so obviously when you move out of state, you kind of are drawn back to where you're from. Like, I can totally connect with that situation right now since I moved to Missouri. It's quite a different atmosphere, and spiritually I feel like I belong in Michigan, I suppose.
I think that happens to all of us. When we leave and we move somewhere else, or we go off into the military or something like that, Michigan seems like it's always your home, at least the ones who come from Michigan. And that's true, because its feeling. I mean, you grew up here, you have all those particular different type of creativity that happens within your time of growing up, and it is. I mean, when I cross the Michigan state border from Ohio, Indiana, whatever, it's just like I'm home. The energy changes, the atmosphere changes, like I'm home.
Exactly. And I know people down here who are connected with Missouri, and whenever they leave Missouri, they feel like they're lost. So it helps us connect, I believe, to where we're indigenous, the land that we're indigenous to, I suppose, from where we're born from, So today we wanted to talk about all of the different excuses that people come up with to not be creative. I think at least both you and I can accept the fact that creativity is a very important aspect of our lives. And in a lot of ways, I believe that creativity is an extension of our own spirit, of our own mark that we leave on this world. That is how we leave our mark in this world, is through our own creativity.
I agree, and it's different forms and different types of creativity that we leave our mark. And creativity comes in many, many different avenues and many, many different areas in life of what we do, how we do it. I mean, the creativity that we're going to be talking about today, at least a little bit, is about writing. You know, what stops us from that? Or the creativity of going and letting ourselves be out there in the world. I mean, it's there's a lot of that stuff that goes on there. So
exactly. Now, every time I'm talking to people, I always I love to know how people are creative. Like, I mean, for me personally, I love to write and I love music, and I consider YouTube to be a creative outlet for me also. And when I ask people, more often than not, the response I get, which is the number one excuse that people make to avoid creativity, is I don't have the time.
I do that.
Oh, we know you do that, Brenda.
Hey, listen to you.
Well, you go ahead first.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to use a personal example from about a month ago. I was dead set on writing a poem. Like, I told myself on this particular Friday, this was a couple weeks ago, that I am going to be creative on this day, and if I do anything else, then, you know, dang it, I just need to be creative. And I got to the point where I convinced myself that I had too much work to do and I didn't have the time. And guess what? I didn't end up doing any work, nor was I creative. So while I basically made an excuse, I also was unproductive in every conceivable way. So this is one of the bad reactions that one can have when it comes to coming up with excuses to avoid creativity.
Well, even when we say we want to meditate or we want to pray or like that, something like that, we say we don't have time. And really, it only takes a few moments, or it only takes 5 minutes, you know, to sit down and center yourself, and that's the main thing, is center yourself and be creative. And we make excuses all the time, I can't do that. And it's only 5 minutes.
Exactly. And I guess when I was a child, I really had no concept of time, really. Like, I knew how to tell time, but time didn't dictate everything that I do, like it does now, for example. I feel like when we become adults, we just become so consumed by the idea of time that we just feel as though we don't have time for anything for ourselves. And I know when I was a child, I was a lot more creative as a child, I suppose, because I didn't have that holding me back. And the thing is people don't realize, like you were just saying, that it only takes a few minutes to be creative. But I think everyone's always trying to label everything with a time or a time span, and that's why we all are compromised when it comes to attempting that creativity.
Well, that's true. The other thing, too, as a young child, our creativity is connected to our intuition, okay, or our imagination. And creativity is using your imagination. Well, when we're in high school, not high school, but we're in elementary school, we're taught to not use our imagination and to draw within the lines or write within the lines, and that's just your imagination. Those are excuses. That's just your imagination. But you know something? We need not to do that to our young, because that suppresses the creativity that we need throughout life. And without that, we go and we just work like little drones, you know, in like a factory. All you're doing is one thing and or two things, and you're just like, okay, it's almost like mind-numbing type of deal. But your creativity is not being utilized in the right way, or not necessarily in the right way, but it's not being utilized along with your intuition.
And I think this next point I'm about to bring up, I think we could do an entire show on this in the future, too, about how our society has gotten to the point where we invalidate creativity. We basically make it seem like creativity is not productive and that it serves no purpose today. Everything seems so fixated on working and making money that anything that's leisurely or anything that's artistic is dismissed without any sort of fleeting thought.
Well, I agree, and then I also disagree with that, because as you're talking, I'm also remembering in the factory. It's so funny as I'm being taken back to the factory again. Is engineers have to use their creativity, even though they're mathematically figuring out things. They're still using that creative ability to bring things together, to create things. So I guess it depends on what we're talking about, you know, with the creativity part of it, because there's many different aspects of creativity, and that is one aspect right there about for an engineer.
I guess what immediately came to mind was the fact that, like, let's take our schools, for example, nowadays. Creative programs are starting to fade away quite a bit. And I feel like that's seriously harming students because they're not able to utilize different outlets in order to express themselves. And, I mean, I guess it does depend on what type of occupation they go into. Like engineers, they are allowed to be creative and, like you said, putting things together and creating, you know, apparatuses and all of that jazz. And there are some people, I want to be a teacher, and I find teaching to be very creative because I'm finding creative ways to help students learn about English, for example. But what I'm thinking about also are the people who work an hourly job, who just get up every morning, go to work, deal with customers all day, come home and sleep and do nothing else. And it really saddens me that there are so many people out there who have to do this.
Yes. However, like I told you I was going to do, I'm going to throw a question wrench in here. When you deal with people, either be it retail or a service, facility or whatever, when you're dealing with the public, you have to sometimes be a little creative in how you approach them and how you work with them and how you react to them. So you have to be able to, think quick on your feet sometimes as well to stop a situation or to actually get it to come to fruition, like excitement and passion. Again, it goes back to the different creative things that we don't even realize are creative. We're using our creativity.
Well, I guess what you're saying is that there's different levels of creativity, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, no, you did a great job. That's okay.
So you're saying that there are different levels of creativity, and they exist even if we don't realize it. But my question is, creativity often serves as a form of catharsis for people. So could you argue that even in creative situations like you just described, that there could be a catharsis involved even?
Absolutely, because you can get to a point where you really don't want to deal with people, or you just okay, this is just another job and I don't really care, I don't want to be here, it's just a job. Then you hinder your creativity. But when you have a passion behind any given thing, that creativity becomes alive and it's well and it's just woo. But when we avoid certain creativity, as you're saying, we make excuses like, I don't have the time, it's because it's something that we technically are capable with doing.
This is true. Describe that a little bit more.
Okay. I'm glad you asked. Because I've been told time and time again, over and over, that I should write, that I need to write. Okay? Mm-hmm. And for me, it's I give the excuse of not being able to, number one, and of humiliation, number two. If I write something, people may laugh at me, and I don't want to do that wrong. I have a little bit of dyslexia, so when I first write it out, my sentences are a little backwards, and then I have to go in and correct them, and sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't. And I don't want people to look upon me as like, oh, she don't know what she's doing, and look who I'm talking to. I'm talking, to an English here.
So essentially you're saying that our insecurities all prevent us a lot of the time from pursuing our creative outlets, right?
I think it can. To a degree, it can, yes.
Brenda, it looks like we have a caller, actually.
Yes, I see that. I'm going to call her. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Donnie. Hi, Brenda. This is Cyndi.
Hello,
Hi,
Cyndi. How are you?
Hi. I'm pretty good. I am a little nervous. I've never been on the radio before, so I'm biting my nails that I just cut really short. But
there's a first time for everything.
You're fine. You're fine.
So Cyndi, I'm very. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Nope. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Cyndi, I'm interested. I'm very happy that you called, actually, because we were just talking about how insecurities can impact our creativity, and I know, since you're one of my very good friends, that at one point in your life, insecurity also damaged your ability to be creative. Would you be willing to talk about that with us?
Yes, I would. It has to do with singing and choir. I wrote the affirmations for bullying victims. I know that it mentions that you are like the co-person on that. That's really cool, but I wrote that in a response to bullying, and I love to sing. I sing in a church choir. I'm a soprano, and I'm very proud of that. But when I was in high school, I went through a very humiliating experience where a teacher basically set me up to fail a solo audition, because at the end of the year, students could audition for little solos for a Broadway concert we would have. The school would have the Broadway concert. And I wanted to do Memory from Cats, but I did not have the accompaniment backing on the piano. All I had was the Barbra Streisand version. So I would try to get the teacher to play it for me while I would record it on my little tape recorder, but she would always seem to just get wrapped up in other things, or other students would come and she would stop and talk to them. Day of the thing, I'm up there shaking like a leaf, and I got one chance to run through it before, and then when I did it, it went so bad that she stopped me in the middle, and I could hear people laughing, and she was just like, just sit down. And she was very unsympathetic, very unapologetic. She was smirking at me, and that led me to really, really horrible stage fright in terms of singing, and I've been facing that very recently. This was in 1998, and here we are in 2012, 2013, 2014, and now in 2015, and I recently faced that fear at church. When the choir director at my church, I told him about this and what happened, and he said he wants to walk me through healing from this. So on Christmas, he had me stand up and sing the first part of Silent Night. Complete terror, but I did it.
Yes, you did.
I felt, I've got it on my YouTube channel, Stream of Awareness. I did that, and I did it, and I was so scared, but standing up to that fear, it doesn't mean I conquered it, but it knows that I can look it in the eye and I can knock it down once before it knocked me down. it's a draw, but one of these days I'm going to knock it out. So it's ongoing, but yeah.
That is an excellent story, and it goes to show you that creativity can be healing as well. I know from experience that if I go through something very difficult, that usually my way of coping with it is either turning on my camera and doing a YouTube video or writing a poem about it. And when I prevent myself from doing that, though, it's the situation builds up and it builds up and it escalates until it overwhelms me completely. And I think a lot of the time when people say that they don't have the time to do it, or if one of their insecurities gets in the way, that can significantly impair them.
Oh, yes, definitely.
That's true. That's true.
And I think another thing people worry about is they always want to compare what they're doing to everybody around them. And I mean, so what if I'm not Celine Dion? I don't have a big voice, but my voice is my voice, and it's just as good as hers because it's got power in its own right. You can be a rock in the middle of a thunderstorm, or you can be the little flower that's swaying back and forth in the wind, and it's not getting blown away. But, it's getting slapped around in the wind, but it's staying together. It's holding its own.
Exactly. Brenda, have you ever had any experience where your insecurity got in the way of you being creative?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we all do. And there was a situation, and I can actually understand, Donnie, what you were talking about, that if you didn't do something that you were supposed to do in that creative form, and you didn't do it, and then all of a sudden you had situations around you that build up, and it's like, until you actually did it. I've had that situation. I still go through that. I mean, I used to go through that more so before, but when I became the president of our local optimist group here, I was shaking in my boots, like, I'm not going to do that. And it's when I was asked, and I said, okay, and the only way I could get out of that situation and feel a little comfort was to say, I'll get back with you. I'll think about it and I'll get back with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I escaped. It was scary. And so my thought was, okay, let me leave here. And I had enough time before I had to go to work, and I went to our local Tim Hortons. Well, at least that was my plan. So I drove right by, went into our outlet center, kind of drove through there, and my mind's racing, like, how am I going to do this? I have this I got to do. I have this and this and this and this. And I was making excuses. Why I could not do this. And then what I did is I pulled back out on the road to go to work, because I still had plenty of time to get there before it opened, or before I had to be there. And I said, okay, God, if this is something that you want me to do, please show me a sign. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You might want to show me a sign that I'm not going to doubt. Because you've shown me signs before, and I've doubted those signs. So this has got to be something that, without a shadow of a doubt, you have to show me a sign. And I just let it that, and I thought, he's not going to show me a sign. He's not going to show me a sign. It's going to take a little while before he even gets back to me, type of deal. Yeah, what the heck, So I was a little comforted, but still inside, I'm like shaking to beat the band, like, blah, So I pull into the parking lot of where I work, and I'm sitting there, and like I said, I had time, and I went on Facebook, and for some reason, on my Facebook feed, different, my personal one, not the one that, you normally get all the normal feeds, but on my personal one, there was a picture of two mountains coming up, in a V shape, like a V shape, and then there was this cloud formation behind it, which was like the top of a heart where the sun was coming through it. So that was a huge sign, and there was only 3 words. There was no sender who sent it to me, nothing. There was only 3 words, and it said, begin with yes. And one side said, I got it. I got it. My fear and everything else fell away. And it was like gone. It was, I'm like, wow. So I went in and I started to, to email the president at that particular time of the group and to say, okay, I'll go ahead and do that. Well, before I could finish it and get it just right, because, I'm a little dyslexic, so I have to make sure everything is right. It takes me a little bit longer. I had to go to work. I had to start work. So what I did is I thought, okay, well, you know me. I mean, I've done this before. If this is the right thing, by the time lunchtime comes around, if I'm like, okay, that's done, I'm good, I'm not going to do it. If I have that feeling, then I'm not going to do it. But if I don't have that feeling and this is the right thing to do, I will finish writing the email and send it off. And guess what happened? I finished writing the email and I sent it off. Was it scary when I first started? Oh yeah, because I'm getting up in front of 40 to 60 people, at one setting. Or at one meeting, I should say. But yet I pushed through that. It was like I had it. It's a learning curve. But because I said yes, I knew I had to go. I had to continue going forward. And I use that now is when someone asks me to do something, I say yes, because that gets me out there. It gets me through that fear, because fear really stops us from going forward. And with that said, we're going to go to break, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Universal Journeys with our hosts, Donnie Winter and Reverend Brenda Faith. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Our call-in number is 345-850-8292. Welcome back, guys. Oh, we got Cyndi here, too. Woo-hoo.
Hello, yes. I'm very happy that we have Cyndi with us, because she brings a very unique experience to our show as well tonight. First of all, I wanted to do a couple brief advertisements. If you would like, you're more than welcome to go like our Facebook page for Universal Journeys. If you go to Facebook and type in facebook.com/Universal Journeys 111, you can find it and click like, and we share a bunch of different interesting photos, and we do advertisements as well, so it's great. So feel free to like our page. And also, I would like to introduce you to Cyndi's YouTube channel on YouTube. If you type in youtube.com/user and then type in /streamofawareness, you'll be able to find her there as well, and we can always provide a link on our Facebook page to that. She is great, has a lot of insight. She talks a lot about spirituality and her bullying experiences. She's very, very insightful, and I am so happy to have both of you as friends. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, Donnie, one more thing that you need to announce, too, is your YouTube site.
Oh, I will be doing that later. Worry not.
Oh, perfect.
We have another break still. I have to have something for that break.
That's true.
So we left off before the break talking about, well, implying that the creativity is an extension of our spirituality. And Brenda shared a lovely story about overcoming fear when it comes to obtaining new opportunities and being creative. And I also know that Cyndi is very connected to her creativity, and that creativity connects her to her spirituality. Would you like to talk to us about that, Cyndi?
Yeah, I'm a Catholic, not a cradle Catholic. I came into the church in 2001, but this recent Christmas, when I was facing that Silent Night thing for the second time, I was just terrified, just like I was the year before. So I went into the little chapel where the tabernacle is, and I took out my rosary. I say the rosary every day, but I wanted to say it in the church that time, right in front of the tabernacle where Jesus is. So, the rosary, it's a very intensive form of prayer. I'm not going to go into like a whole bunch of detail about it, but there are several decades you pray to, and that day was the glorious mysteries. So, or like just the most incredible mysteries, like the resurrection, the resurrection of Jesus, the ascension of Jesus, the descent of the Holy Spirit, that's Pentecost, where the little flames are above everybody's head. And then there was Mary goes into heaven, and then she's crowned as Queen of Heaven and Earth. And so I was praying my rosary, and I was just letting the fear just run through me. I just let it run over me, and I was just giving it to God while I was saying the rosary, over and over, Hail Mary, full of grace, all 10. And when I got to the Holy Spirit part, this image appeared in my mind. It was the cross, and it had light shining on it, and it had these wings of fire come out and surround me and wrap around me in like this really tight embrace, and I just felt really safe and really strong, and I just felt like I was being protected. And when I finished that decade of the rosary, the image had kind of faded away, and it wasn't like a physical image like you see a bottle of water in front of you. It's like if you think of a cat, you know what a cat looks like. You just think of an image of a cat. It was like that. So I was shaking and I was crying, and I finished my rosary, and I ran out to John, my choir director, and I told him what I saw, and he just gave me this big tight hug, and he said, "You see, it's going to be okay." The thing with that is I did not think of that image myself. It came to me. So I had a response from God as I was speaking to him. It's like I'm saying, "Father, I'm scared." And he just reached down just like any little dad picks up their little kid and says, "It's going to be okay." And when I was waiting for my turn to sing, I was just really terrified that night. I was having a flashback of that classroom where the whole solo thing went wrong, and I was afraid to open my eyes. So when I finally called upon that image again, it didn't take the fear away, but it made it tolerable. So I opened my eyes, and I was in church, and I did the thing. I cried, but I did the thing, like the internet meme thing. And it felt like triumph. And, you think of just all the art and the music that religion has inspired. I'm singing things with my church choir that somebody wrote like 400, 500 years ago. And that's one heck of a way to be immortal, I think. Just because something may not be good now doesn't mean it won't be good some other time,
Exactly. That is a very interesting point you make, too. I always have this question in the back of my mind of why we value creativity so much. And I always have believed that we value creativity because in some way it leaves an imprint of the person that we are in this world. And I believe deep down that most of us feel as though that imprint will remain in this world far, far long after we've been gone.
I would have to say that's true. In more ways than one, actually. I mean, because because you have the great person like Shakespeare, okay? Well, because we're talking about writing and creativity. Shakespeare has been here and been, throughout the eons of decades in our lives. And then yet, if you go where Shakespeare was, you can almost feel his essence. So that's a different point than you would feel in his writings. You would connect with him in a little bit different way.
And I think that goes for like art or pottery or anything like that too. It helps develop that connection to the individual who created it.
Well, and that goes back to writers too. You have writers that when they write the book, their energy is within those words, and it doesn't matter how many books are produced, you still get that essence of that individual because you're right there, you're with them. So that lives on too, eons and eons.
Exactly, definitely.
Yes, that's very true. I think another thing, speaking on insecurities is, I think people, they worry so much about wanting it to be perfect for everybody, and if one person doesn't like it, it's not good enough. That's the mindset that I have struggled with for so long. I write a lot of fan fiction and stuff, and, I've got some poetry that's, floating around the internet, but, it seems like you can get 20 comments that say, this is great, this is wonderful, but then you get the one person that goes, oh, my God, this sucks, why do you write? Quit writing, you should never write again, this is crap. And it's like, that just destroys people, and I think the mindset behind that is they think, oh, gosh, everybody's just saying nice things to be nice, but what if they all really think what that mean person said? But turn it around, you can like apple pie, and you can make the best apple pie in the world, but some guy that doesn't like apple pie is going to come in and go, this pie sucks. Why do you bake this pie? Don't bake anymore. And it's like, yeah, but you got 50 other people that like that pie. So, worry about the 50 people that like it. Don't worry about the one guy that's going to be a jerk, I think
very well stated.
Very well stated.
It's interesting because it seems like a lot of the time we let the one voice expressing distaste against something that we do overpower all of the people that react positively to the creative things that we make.
And did we lose Donnie? I'm thinking we did.
Uh-oh.
Well, we're going to keep going because he'll call back or figure out that he actually left us. But there is this thing, with this type of, what you're saying is very spot on. Because what we have, and I don't know why it is that we're drawn to that one person who is negative, and we go with that one instead of the 40 or 50 or 100 or more people that says you're doing a great job.
Yeah,
welcome back, Donnie.
I am back. Sorry, I got my call was dropped for a second for some reason.
Oops, it muted you.
Okay, so what did I miss?
You just missed us saying, "Oh, Donnie got dropped," and what I mentioned is it's interesting how we can have all these people tell us that we did a great job, and what we gravitate to is that one person who didn't like it. It's like, why do we do that? Because they may not like it because it's not for them. Okay, so it's not for them. But what about all these other people that think it's great?
Exactly. And I think we internalize the negative emotions that other people give off as well. And we interpret them as negative emotions when, in fact, they're really just people who don't share the same desires or wishes that we do. And I think, our journey should not necessarily be to change those individuals and change their opinions because, we can't force someone to change their opinion, but deep within ourselves, recognizing the fact that we can't please everyone, and that is something that I struggle with every day too. Because I'm a people pleaser. I want to please everyone, especially when it comes to being creative. And when I can't, I'm devastated. But I think gradually through life, we make efforts and realize that trying to please everyone is not going to accomplish anything.
No, I think at the core we should worry about, well, do I like this? When I write something I want to read. And it's like, I like this. Here, why don't you see this too? This is a piece of me. I like it. Do you like it? Okay, you don't like it? Well, they like it. So, one person doesn't like it. Okay, take it back. Give it to somebody else. Somebody else will like it.
Right, and again, some of the stuff that stops our creativity as well, again, it goes back to fear. Because, again, I can say, and I mentioned earlier in the show, that I'm slightly dyslexic. So I am afraid what people will say about what I write, be it right, wrong, or indifferent. So I don't. That hinders me from going forward. Even even when I sit down to write, I'm very critical of how I write my sentences, and that shouldn't be. You should just let it flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I was told one time that if you have in a writing, no matter what you write, if you have misspellings or words that are not right in the right spot, that it's not worth reading. Okay, and it doesn't have any, and it doesn't have any, what do you want to call it, they didn't do the research or they didn't do something. That impacted me a lot. So that's one of my stoppers right there. Is like, shoot, I can't be that perfect, and I don't want people thinking that I don't know how to write and I don't know what I'm talking about when I, write about a particular type of subject, just because I may have a misspelled word or something like that. So that has stopped me from, and I have to overcome that.
Mm-hmm. I have that same problem sometimes too. I definitely do. So I completely understand.
Yeah,
and I. What were you going to say, Brenda?
I was going to say, I can't believe that you have that, Donnie.
Why would you say that?
Because as much as you write in, the what you're teaching others, students and stuff like that, where you're teaching them, it's kind of like, really, I mean, you have that issue too. That's pretty cool in a way.
I mean, I have days where like certain grammatical things I have to refresh myself on, like I mean, I can't remember everything, and I'm by all means not perfect either, and I do get very insecure about teaching sometimes, but my mentor here, like I every time I'm feeling insecure about anything, basically, I remember what she said, and she told me that the best teacher is always the most insecure teacher, and I always replace teacher with whatever I'm insecure about. And in a way, I believe, I know I've talked a lot about this in some of my YouTube videos, but insecurity, like a lot of the time we let it control us. And instead, I feel like we should question that insecurity and ask it why it exists and determine where it comes from and use that insecurity to help ourselves achieve a higher level of creative enlightenment. Because I firmly believe that insecurity exists for a reason. It exists to help keep us, what's the word I'm thinking? It helps keep our compass going in a specific direction.
Mm-hmm.
But it can also be a very bad thing as well.
Mm-hmm. How can you overcome those situations, though? What would you say would be the first step to overcome a fear like that?
For me, my first step always is taking a deep breath. I know that sounds so incredibly quaint, but taking a deep breath does so much. And the second step I would say would be telling myself that instead of saying that I don't have control of the situation, I do have control of the situation. I just need to determine where that insecurity is coming from first and foremost. So taking a moment to sit back and reflect about the origin of that insecurity and why it exists will help you understand it, and it'll help you calm down and eventually overcome that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And really, those are the only steps that I really use, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And I guess for me going into the position that I'm in now and getting up in front and talking to people, it was the fear of ridicule and being laughed at, and it's like I had to push myself through it. That's how I got through standing up in front of people and talking. And in a manner of speaking, that's how I got through being able to talk on the internet here, like on the radio, internet radio, because there was a great fear there. It's like, oh my gosh, all these people are listening and blah, 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 and I'm like, so what? I've got to the point like, so what?
Right.
If they want to listen, they can listen. If they don't, they don't. So what?
Exactly.
So. If you're having fun,
Right.
Exactly.
If you're having fun, do it.
Yeah, and if you're enjoying what you're writing, it's going to show in the writing too. Because like that energy thing that you were talking about, if you love what you're doing, people are going to see how much you love doing it, and it's going to read to them. Yeah, it's just the message will get through that I'm having so much fun doing this. Isn't it as fun to read this as it was to write it? I'm pretty sure it might be.
Exactly. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because while we believe that negativity, we internalize negativity and we believe that negativity is a very powerful force, we don't really realize that positivity is equally as infectious. And I think if it can be reflected in our own creativity, our emotions, then people will gradually understand those same emotions and decide to be creative for themselves, because I firmly believe that everyone has a creative outlet. Some people will deny it, but I call bull crap. I do not believe that whatsoever.
Well, the other thing with that as well is it may not be the same as someone else's creativity. Everyone has a unique way of doing different things, and then it's creative. That's just like being a psychic, okay, or an intuitive, however you want to call it. And you are in front of an individual, and you're doing, giving them information and stuff like that. That is a creative way of doing things. Then you have another one over here who just naturally talks or generally talks just like a regular conversation, and they're giving you information. You don't even realize it. Believe me, that is creative too. This is all creative information.
And like what we were talking about earlier in the show, engineers, for example, they're creative in their own unique way. Like my mom, for example, loves to crochet. She would consider that a creative outlet as well. It varies so much. I consider gardening to be a creative outlet. There's such a diverse variety, and people don't really see that.
But there are times when things stop us from that too, and that's when we have to say, what is it that's stopping us? Is it that I don't have enough time, or I'm not good at anything creative, or well, yeah, you are. It doesn't matter if you're taking care of a child, and you make something for them that's not normal, that's your specialty or something like that. That's being creative. It literally goes back to what we consider what creative is.
Exactly.
And it's our thoughts that stop us from going forward. And I say that, and as I'm saying that, I realize that with the book that I want to write, and this is what's stopping me from going forward, is bringing up those old emotions of going through, the hurt that was felt. And it's like you don't want to go through that. But yet, in another aspect, you realize that is part of the healing process. It doesn't make it any easier.
It doesn't make it any easier, but it's a necessary step.
Oh yeah, I can feel you there. When I did my cover of Demi Lovato's Skyscraper, I made the music video to go with it, and it was basically kind of the story of the bullying I went through. And I almost took my life because of the bullying. It was so bad. When I was 16, I had a mouthful of pills, and I said, God, if you don't want me up there, make me spit these pills out. And I sneezed, and the pills went everywhere. And I thought it was a rejection, but now I realize God put me through that so that I can help other people that are going through it too. Because I talked a 13-year-old girl out of committing suicide on Tumblr once. 13. I mean, you're just a baby when you're 13. And she was mixed race, so people were making fun of her because she was mixed race. But when I did this Skyscraper video, I had to relive those horrible memories, and the emotions that you see coming out of me in that video are real. I'm not putting on a fake crying or anything. It's all real. But it was so healing And it was through a creative outlet of showing my pain to the world and saying, look, I've been here. This is ugly. I know it's ugly, but I've been here, and there's somebody out there going through this too, and I want you to know you can get through it. You know, it's just like Christ showed us how to find God. You know, when he died on the cross, you know, he showed us how to be good people. So I'm going to show people who are being bullied how to get through it just by hanging on.
Yep. Yep.
And that's a creative outlet, too. The affirmations for bullying victims, that's a creative outlet, too. That was written in just a rush of just emotion after Amanda Todd, you know, when I wrote that. And it all just came out at once. I wrote it in about 5 minutes. Boom.
Wow.
And it's a very powerful message, too, definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm still, I mean, when I think about writing that section of it, is I still have that, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to relive that. It just hurts so much. And but yet in the same token, there was a lot of love in between all of that hurt and pain that people need to know about as well.
Exactly.
But it's
definitely.
But it's me being brave enough to put it down in words and make it make sense, and getting through that pain and heartache that I need to push through.
And what helps us get through it is realizing that bravery, that someone else will see it too, and that's what's important. Brenda, we're coming up on a break here in a minute, aren't we?
Yes, we are. I'm watching the clock here.
All right. Well, Cyndi, I really appreciate you coming on our show with us, and thank you for sharing your insights, and I hope you'll be on the show again in the future.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun. Even though it was scary, it was fun. There you go. I'm being brave right now.
Yes, you are. You're doing a wonderful job at that.
I know, it's wild.
Yeah. And with that said, we're going to go on break, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Universal Journeys. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Our call-in number is 347-850-8292. It's all yours, Donnie.
Oh, welcome back, everyone. So for the next segment of our show, I'd like to do a couple quick little advertisements first. The first advertisement is none other but my own YouTube channel. If you go into YouTube and type in youtube.com/user/Donnie Winter, and that's Donnie with a Y, you can find my YouTube channel. I do videos about LGBTQ rights, anti-bullying advocacy, and a bunch of sometimes really nerdy random stuff. And I also have a second YouTube channel that's called DonnySpeaks. So if you go to YouTube and type in DWSpeaks, you'll be able to find that. I write a bunch of poetry, and I express myself. That is my creative expression. So if you want to go check that out, feel free to go check it out and subscribe to my channels. I would appreciate it. Okay, Brenda, so where were we?
We were just saying thank you for Cyndi for coming on and talking to us and explaining some of the things that you went through with your creativity and how you were, kind of squished a little bit, and then how you overcame them. Because we all go through this type of thing where people try to squish our creativity, and we need to, either say, no, I'm not listening to them, or you need to overcome that particular fear. So that's kind of where we left off at. But I know that you have some other things that you want to talk about.
Okay, yes. The insecurity was my second excuse that people make to avoid creativity. My third excuse that I've commonly heard people say is, I'm not good at anything creative. And this, I sincerely do not believe that. I feel like creativity, like we've been talking about, manifests itself in many, many, many different ways. So, whenever I hear people see this, my question is, who are you trying to impress? And I've in my own experience, I've realized that that I need to be creative for myself before I'm creative for other people. If other people appreciate my creativity, that's great. But first and foremost, I need to appreciate my own abilities before I can continue to branch out.
Well, I can honestly tell you, Donnie, I mean, I've been very impressed with your YouTube videos that you've put out there. I mean, some of those things are like, ooh, I don't know if I would do that. And that takes a lot of bravery. I mean, talking about different things that you've talked about, and you've expressed your feelings and your heartfelt emotions as well, and that's incredible to put yourself out there like that. I mean, that's totally awesome, and without any fear, and that's the way it should be. Do we all do it? Not at all.
And it took, well, I appreciate you for saying that, by the way. Thank you. It took a long time for me to get to a point where I shouldn't.
Did we lose them? Yep, Donnie, I'm not hearing you there, girlfriend. Boyfriend. So until you come back, I'm going to say this one here. We just got an information, or someone wrote in the chat room, is excuses don't work for me. I can understand reasons, but excuses are born from lies. And Green Master just says it's just me. How would that be? How would that be? You know, I mean, how is it a lie? Excuses are born from lies. Is it a lie coming from the individual themselves or from someone who is telling you that you're not good enough? Those would be information or suggestions. So to actually talk about. For me, it could be a lie. I could be telling myself lies, saying that no, that's not true, or I'm not good enough. Those particular ones, that's a lie, because I am good enough. And those are things that I have to put myself there and say, I am good enough. You know, maybe when we were younger, we were told that, oh, you'll not be good for, you know, do anything, and you'll not be good enough for this or that or whatever. And that's just something that we grew up with to be able to overcome. I'm looking at it that way, of that particular aspect. But those are things that we do need to overcome. Just like that's the thing that I need to overcome. I mean, there was a couple times when my mother said, oh, you're never going to have this, and you're never going to have that. You're never going to have a house. You're never going to have a car. You're never going to have a husband, or you're never going to be good enough. And I felt that sometimes. You know, I love my mother, but yet those are some things that what happens when we're growing up. And then we come in and we remember as youth from the kids. It's like, don't be telling these little kids that they can't do something when in fact they can. You just take that away from them when you tell them that. And you put that little mindset, a little program in their mind saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this. Bull. Because you can. So welcome back.
I completely agree with you. And sometimes we even have to overcome technological glitches, too, it seems.
Yes. Let's see. Dream Master actually did respond. It says, like making an excuse for where people should say, I should be in a higher vibration that I deny. Like making an excuse for where people should say, I should be in a higher vibration that I deny.
Interesting. So essentially you're saying that making an excuse for where people should say I should be in a higher vibration that I deny. So being at like a higher level, like people say that you should be at a higher level, but you believe that you shouldn't be, I think that's what that means.
Well, in vibration in itself says, knowing our misgivings, our shortcomings, I own them. And that's true.
Oh,
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Of knowing our misgivings and our shortcomings. We have to own that. It's like taking responsibility for your own actions. And if you can't take responsibility for your actions, guess what? You're hindering yourself from going forward.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's owning them. Yep, that's what Dream Master said. It's owning them. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So to go back to your therefore no
so
excuses.
we've gone through the first excuse, which is I don't have the time. The second excuse is I'm not good at anything creative. The third excuse was I'm afraid to, which falls into the sanctum of those insecurities. And the fourth one that I have is it will not make me any money. And I am a person who was super duper guilty for this at one point in my life, because I believe, like, there was a point where everyone in my life was telling me to not be a writer because it wouldn't make me any money at all. And to this day, like, my creative writing specialty is poetry, and I have people always tell me, oh, well, poetry won't make you any money. Poetry is the lowest paying aspect of literature. And it's, in my mind, I'm like, does it really matter? Because back then I believed it mattered, and that's what prevented me from immersing myself in creativity. And I've just gotten to the point where, you know, money isn't the priority. It's the expression that's the priority. And to the people who tell themselves that their creativity doesn't make them any money, have you even tried making money with your creativity? If you if you are an artist or anything like that, have you ever considered maybe being a freelance artist or a freelance writer? Or did you ever consider maybe, if you like pottery and ceramics, to create your own Facebook page and sell your own pottery or ceramics? There are ways of using your creativity for a monetary purpose as well. That also comes with creativity. You have to creatively think about the different outlets for monetary gain if you want to use your creativity for that purpose.
Well, and there are times when I've been told, too, well, there's so many books out there, you know, you probably won't get published or different things like that. And, well, there's similar subjects on that particular, or there's similar books out on that particular subject. And it's like, you know, they're all different, but yet if you look at it, not everyone gets the same information from one book. Takes it being written several different ways in order for a person to get that. Okay? I'm not talking about if the person gets it the first time, they get it from whatever book. But if another person reads that book and they don't get it, they go to another book and they might get that because it's in the words that they understand.
I completely agree with you, 100%. We live in a day and age where everyone is so bent on originality. Like, everyone's always claiming that everyone's work is not original and that it's not authentic. And I really think that this ridiculous sense of the need for authenticity, I just feel like it's ridiculous, because I feel like in our way we're all capable of creating authenticity. We're influenced by the different creative outlets around us. We're influenced by the art we see. We're influenced by the literature we see. We're influenced by the movies and TV shows we see. Like, who's to say that we can't take those and use those as means of inspiration for our own creativity?
Right, and I can give you an example on that as well. Is I went to see this movie, I can't remember what the name of the movie was. It just came out, and it had to do with outer space and time travel. Not time travel, but it was time travel. And I look at the movie, anytime that I watch a movie, I look at the spiritual aspect of it, because that's my passion. And so I look at the possibilities within the movie. So I was watching this movie with a friend, and he didn't really care for it because it just wasn't for him. And so we left there, and on our way back home, I got a call from one of my spiritual friends, So we are, so we're talking back and forth, and I have a Bluetooth, so it's coming over the speakers and everything else. And so we're talking about, man, this could be possible, you know, with this and this. And at the end of the movie, it has something to do with the Seth Speaks book. I mean, there was stuff that was taken out of that book that was actually portrayed in this particular movie. And with the movie, there's these possibilities that this guy was trying to communicate with his daughter who got these information, and she wasn't afraid what was happening, and he knew that she knew a particular type of code, and he was trying to get it back to her, but yet he was in fact right there with her. He had not traveled, in space at that time, and he was trying to tell her to tell himself not to go. Don't go. But being the dad that he is, and he's like, this is a great opportunity to help humanity and blah, 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 he went on this space travel. Well, it shows that he went through all of these type of things, and the further away from Earth that you travel, the years change, okay? You stay the same as in your youthfulness, but your days and your years and everything else, well, when they are actually, I'm just going blank here for a little bit, but they are aging quicker on Earth, basically, than he was when he was traveling to find a place for Earth beings to go, because Earth was falling apart at that particular time. And he went through a lot of different things, and he realized that the quantum physics and the reality that we believe we know is not truly the way we know it. But and I lost my train of thought of where I was going with that, but if this wasn't put out there, we wouldn't know that. And you have many people. Anyhow, the gentleman that I was with, when we got off the phone, he goes, that's what they want you to believe. That's made up. There's no truth behind it, blah, 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 blah. Well, he ended up passing away a few weeks later, and he came back to me through a friend, and he told my friend, you were right. That you were right with what you were telling me and what you were saying. It was amazing.
Interesting how things come in full circle like that, right?
Yeah. And we have another thing in the chat room that says, and this came from Dream Master again, I have 2 jobs. One I actually make a living with, and another that not many know I do. The exchange, per se, is witnessing the transformation of human consciousness shifting. That's my paycheck. The other one is just that we are coming into the remembrance of our multidimensional being, of being that we are multidimensional. And if he was to say, or she was to say this to some people who do not believe it, they would poo-poo that, just like my friend poo-pooed what I was, that creativity that was happening. I love you laugh. The creativity of what was happening during that process when I was talking to my other friend over the Bluetooth in the car, I doubted myself there for a little bit. It's like, is this really real? Is what he's saying is true? But then I was like, no, I've had too many experiences to let this one person change the way I thought, I felt, I know. Mm-hmm. So he could have stifled my creativity. I could have let him do that. Mm-hmm. But I did not. And that's what we need to realize. With anything.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that also falls into the category of insecurity, because sometimes when we listen to other people talk about something, it can create a spark of insecurity within us or trigger an insecurity. And I guess the thing that we need to overcome is being able to recognize when we should listen to them and take it to heart, or when we shouldn't.
Mhm. Mhm. True. Very true. Be it whether or not family members, or be it with friends, or be it with, people who are out there like, hey, they don't know me from John, Joe, or Jack, or Jane, saying, hey, this is great, or hey, this is not. So it's taking the criticism and figuring out if it's if it's plausible or not.
Mhm. Sometimes we just got to ignore their, how did you say it, poo-pooing?
Yeah, poo-pooing.
I love it. Okay, so it will not make us any money. Like, people who tell themselves that. People need to realize, this is my concluding thought for this excuse, is that monetary gain is not the only gain we receive out of creativity. We receive spiritual gain. We receive enlightenment, which both of those would go hand in hand. Being open to recognizing those other gains is imperative, in my opinion.
Yeah, because you have to, and this is going to sound a little weird the way I'm going to bring it out, but you have to breed creativity with creativity.
Exactly.
You have to
completely agree with that.
Yeah, because without you using your creativity and continuing to use at least some form of creativity, you lose that creativity. Like intuition, if you don't use it, you sometimes lose it. You know, and so it's that thing. And then Dream Master also put on here, it's fine. We are all on our own path, which is very true, because that's my phrase. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. And our timeline, not someone else's timeline. That's huge too for me, because I've had people on the other side pushing me to do this book, and it's like, look, it's my time. It's my timeline, not yours. I understand that you want me to get it done and get it out there, but I have to do it in my time. And it has to be set up just right. And then to go on, it says, there are some that want to be on you. They want you to be on their timeline, but that's not happening here. We can't do that. It all has to be progressed in our own time, because if it's not, guess what? We're gonna screw it up, because we're being pushed, we're being prodded. It's got to happen within our own timeline. And once I told that to the individual on the other side who was pushing me, it's like, look, it's got to be my own timeline. I have to do it my own way. And once I do it my own way and I feel comfortable about it, it's going to be much better than when it would be if I was pushed to do it any other way.
Sometimes the forcing of creativity can be almost as destructive as insecurity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. He also said something, or she also said something in there too, is many humans work within modalities, which is very true. And many are seeing the big picture. Again, that is true as well. You know, so again, I see the big picture differently than everyone else. And Donnie, you see the big picture, and then everyone else sees the big picture differently. But yet there are commonalities there. We just have to realize what it is and come together with that. So
I agree.
I'm sorry, I took over. Go ahead.
No. I completely agree with you. Those were excellent points. I think the fact that we all see things from different perspectives and that we all have different timelines for our creative processes is extremely important. Like, it's important to not invalidate each other's, different modes of expression, or the time in which we create those tidbits of expression.
Right. For me, what I try to do, and I try to remember this, sometimes I falter, but I try to say, have you thought about it this way? Or have you thought about it that way? Which makes them, look at it a little bit differently, but yet they can also go back and do it the way that they had planned on doing it and stuff like that. I am not saying they're wrong, but I'm saying, have you thought about it maybe this way or that way, or what this might look like this way or that way? It's just a little bit of, stuff. My way is not always right for everyone, and ditto with the rest of it.
Exactly. And that's That's something that it's difficult to overcome with being a poet as well, because in academia, poets have their own specific ways of doing things, and if you don't do it in the way that they want you to do it, you are considered inferior, and that is something that's it's something that I'm continually trying to change, because even though we may encounter someone who may have more experience at something with us, that level of experience they have doesn't invalidate our own experiences.
Right. We may not have gotten to the point that, say, another one has already achieved, and vice versa.
And if we accept the fact that, we won't achieve the exact same things that they will achieve. We're our own unique individual person. We have to embrace that uniqueness, and we can't expect ourselves to follow in someone else's path, because our path is our own.
But we so do it all the time. And I think it's because of when we were growing up, we're taught, you have to do it this way. You cannot use your creative ability to be any different than what we teach you to be.
Exactly.
Sorry.
And it was perfect emphasis. and we carry that with us into adulthood. We continually think that, we don't have the ability to be creative. People invalidate their own abilities, and it's sad.
That's very true. And we'll go back to the chat room again. Dream Master said, this is why I kind of see in the third perspective, not being subjective, but being objective. And then people, many, are so judgmental. And they are, because I honestly believe it comes from childhood. Because their parents or someone in their life was judgmental against them, and that's what they learned. Children have a brain full of mush, and mush is where they go, things come in all the time. It's like they're the Johnny Five, I don't know if you ever remember Johnny Five, the movie Johnny Five, but Johnny Five was this robot who became kind of human, and so he's like, feed me, and it was like, feed me information. But people are so judgmental. It's like, children are like this type of thing. It's like, feed me this, knowledge, information, but don't hinder me, don't suppress me, and that happens all the time, unfortunately.
Exactly.
That's like saying you're supposed to be one thing and yet you're another thing. It's like, no, you're supposed to be straight, but yet you're gay, and then that's just an example, okay? And that's a huge example. So it's like, no, I am who I am. I cannot change that.
Exactly.
Why are you trying to change me? I like, and then Dream Master also said, wonderful sharing, Donnie and Brenda. Well, thank you very much. Whoop, whoop.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes, very much so. Thank you. So I took us off track a little bit. So let us go back. I like what you said with, money. It's not going to make me any money. And I like what you said. Have you ever tried it? Do you really know if it's going to make you money or not? I can tell you my creativity with my spirituality and counseling individuals and talking to them about different aspects and different ways that they may not have talked about. I may not be making a whole lot of money, but you know something? I'm helping those individuals, and that's enough money for me.
Exactly. And people just feel as though that if it's not a job, like a traditional job, that they can't make money. People believe that they can't enjoy their work, which I firmly disagree with. So we have gone through time. I'm not good at anything. I'm afraid to. I cannot speak today. Jeez. It will not make me any money. And the last one, which is an interesting one that I've been hearing a lot recently, I'm too old to be creative.
True, I am. I can't be creative because I'm too old. Sorry.
Brenda, do I need to march up to Michigan right now?
No, that's quite all right, because I'm not too old, and I'm never going to be too old.
So I got a very interesting quote from Washington Post by a writer named Tara Brahmpour. I think that's how. Sorry, Tara, if you ever listen to this, if I mispronounced your name. And I'm quoting out of it. She says, quote, "The origins of creativity are complex, influenced by societal, emotional, and neurological factors. And although some creative minds do peak in younger years, the trajectory is often not straightforward." So many people assume that creativity is something that exists at a younger age, when in fact that is totally not true. Creativity can manifest itself no matter where we are in life. And the point I would like to make to people who continually tell themselves that they're too old to be creative is, did you ever consider that the belief that you're too old to be creative may be the thing that's hindering you from making the effort to be creative? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very valid question, because I'll use my grandma, for example. She has experienced some memory loss in recent years, but it has not tarnished her ability to be creative. And my grandma's creative outlet is through gardening, through planting flowers. And every single summer she goes out there and she plants the most beautiful flowers. She has people stopping on the sidewalk to take pictures of her yard, for heaven's sake. So the belief that a person is too old to be creative is simply illogical, and I think it stems back to the whole insecurity. People think that because they're at a certain age, their ability to create is no longer relevant, and that is completely not true.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And as you were saying that, and being too old, it's like, that's like saying that you're too old to go back to school, and many people have stopped because of that. But I remember growing up, and I remember in the news, in the headlines, the news, that there was this 60, 70, or 80-year-old woman who went back to college, mm-hmm. and she was in college, and she got her degree. And then, she was there with all these younger people and everything else, and lo and behold, what did she become? She became a mentor for those young people.
Exactly.
Yeah, she may have needed a little bit of help, but she did it. She broke the stigma of, oh, you're too old. And then later on, I've heard of men going back and different things like that. But you're never told. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can do anything you want to do. Anything you put your mind to do, you could do it.
I completely agree with that. Completely agree.
As I'm telling myself that.
Well, it's really interesting, because ageism, I feel, is a very under-discussed subject, because in our culture we've gotten to the point where people can do whatever they want no matter how old they are. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are older face a lot of discrimination because of this, mm-hmm. from younger people, and that needs to stop, because age is just a number. A person can create amazing things no matter how old they are. And I don't know about all you people, but by the time I'm 80, I plan on still being a teacher, and I plan on writing still. I don't care. I want to be active and creative when I'm older.
Yep. Even if you're crotchety, right?
Exactly. Even if I'm crotchety. That wouldn't be much of a change, would it?
No, you are far from being crotchety, by the way.
I know.
And I would have to say the same thing. I couldn't stop doing what I do because I love it. It's my passion. And if I did stop, which I did try to stop, I felt out of sorts. I felt like I wasn't being productive. I felt like I was run down, and it's just a crazy thing that happens when you don't do your passion.
Exactly. It's an intricate part of our identity.
Yeah, exactly. And creativity is a part of that. It's a big part of that.
Mm. And naturally, if we ignore that important part, we lose who we are. We may not realize it right off the bat, but gradually we will. I mean, it's been a week since I've made a YouTube video, and I can already feel it. I've been telling myself, get this, I've been telling myself, I'm too busy. So it looks like I need to practice what I preach. Yeah,
and we do. But, the question, Donnie, that is posed, I guess, to everyone, what is creativity? What is that? Did we say what that creativity was? What is that?
I sincerely believe that creativity is an extension of our spirituality. It's an extension of our inner selves. We take the individual we are and we put it out there in this world in whatever way we want, and that manifests itself as creativity. I mean, imagine if we lived in a world where we did not express ourselves at all.
True. Where would we be?
I feel like our existence would not have purpose. Creativity and spirituality they both give us a purpose.
And creativity can be I just went to Wikipedia, and this is what they say about creativity. Creativity is a phenomenon whereby something new and in some way valuable is created, such as an idea, a joke, a literary work, painting or musical composition, a solution, an invention, etc. The range of scholarly interest in creativity includes a multitude of definitions and approaches involving several disciplines: psychology, cognitive science, education, philosophy, particular philosophy of science, technology, theology, sociology, linguistic studies, songwriting, and economics, taking in the relationship between creativity and general intelligence, mental and neurological processes associated with creativity, the relationships between personality type and creative ability, and between creativity and mental health, the potential for fostering creativity through education and training, especially as augmented by technology, in the application of creativity resources to improve the effectiveness of learning and teaching processes. Whew, that was long.
Interesting. Very informative.
But it's right there. That is it in a nutshell. And if you notice, that encompasses everything.
And what's another interesting thing is that everyone's definition of creativity varies based on our own creative outlets. Obviously, an engineer's definition of creativity is going to be far, far different than my definition of creativity or your definition of creativity.
Right.
And some people don't even associate spirituality with creativity. It really depends on the person.
And that would be so wrong. In my opinion, that would be so wrong.
I mean, I agree with you completely. Sadly, people think that way, though, sometimes.
I know. Oh, that's nothing. No, that doesn't mean anything.
So, in my years of being a creative person, I have kind of come up with a list of ways that enhance creativity. And a lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people sometimes don't know what provokes creativity, but there are many things that can provoke the inner muse. And number one, which goes along with our list of excuses, is make the time. If you make the time for yourself to be creative, at least once a week even, you'll start feeling much more refreshed. You'll start feeling like yourself. I know I've made it my mission to, no matter where I go now, I carry around my poetry notebook. I have a little notebook that I carry around, and if I see a striking image or I hear something interesting, I will write it down. That way I can come back to it later when I do have the time and I can finish it. And it's sometimes when I go to bed at night, for example. I don't know about you, but I'm the kind of person when I go to bed, instantly my mind starts going and going and going, and that's when often my creative streak happens. Like I'll just touch the bed and suddenly I want to write a manuscript of poetry. And I will get up and I will write the ideas down in my poetry book. That way I can come back to it and address it. I mean, and there are times where you shouldn't even come back to it. You should do it at that moment. And a lot of the time we will lose the passion of that moment because we believe that we don't have the time. So number one, definitely make the time.
Well, yeah, but I'm telling you, sometimes I get those creative things in a couple different inappropriate places, okay? I may be in the shower and I'm getting some great information. I'm not going to jump out of the shower and write those things down.
Well, obviously there are certain situations where it would be impossible.
And the other thing is, sometimes when I'm driving down the road, I'm getting this great information, and I seem to be getting this. I get this right at the beginning when I wake up. But when I'm driving, I can't write it down because I'm driving. You know, that's crazy. So,
well, gee, Brenda, I'm kidding.
Yeah. But I'm not getting out of bed. Once I'm in bed, I'm not getting out of bed to write. I'm just saying, okay?
Fair enough.
We do have a caller. Shall we take the call?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, is this Brenda?
Yes, Brenda.
Yeah, hi. This is Dream Master in the chat room. It's Dennis.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, and is Donnie as well?
Correct, yes.
Pardon me?
Yes, I am Donnie.
Donnie, yeah, hi. Yeah, you were speaking earlier, and I had to drop the phone for a few minutes, but I wanted to call in regards to excuses and reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you were mentioning on excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I have a big thing about that, and I was actually fired for it. And my feeling is when we make excuses, I feel like when I used to make excuses for things, it was twisting the truth, right? And you know, to manipulate a circumstance per se, where that, you know, they'd be okay with it, you know, if they heard it from me, you know, that was my story, quote unquote story per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to a point, it was like, no, I'm done with making excuses. I'm just going to say it straight up, and you know, and it's, you know, if this is the reason I didn't do this, or if this is the reason I didn't do that, or whatnot. And if you don't believe it, well, that's fine, because you know what? I know that that's the truth, right? That's what I actually experienced. I didn't make up no excuse, right? And yeah, and this is being authentic, right? You know, then I got to learn. I say, well, this is good, right? Because, you know, when people make lies or create them or whatnot, what they're doing is that they have to remember the lies that they tell certain individuals, and you know, and if one individual is a mutual friend with another of yours, you know, you got to like coordinate all this stuff, and it's like, no, it's so simple. Right? This is simplicity. It's so simple to tell the truth and say it as it is, and that way you don't have to remember what you said to anybody else because you're telling them the truth. You know, there's no excuses.
And that's very true. And then when you're telling me this, I'm reminded about what Hitler said. His philosophy was, don't tell a little lie, because people are not going to believe it. But if you tell a big lie, people are more apt to believe it. So if he would have told the truth, they wouldn't have believed it. So he told a lie instead. But authenticity of an individual in my book is very highly regarded as an individual. When they're more authentic and they can put that out there as being authentic because they are, they stand very high in my book.
Same here.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing, Brenda. You know, it's like you can't be broken down because you broke yourself down for them to see you as you are, fully. You know, and it's like if anybody's got any issue on you after that, it's like look at yourself, all right? Because you're coming at me because you got something that you don't want to see within yourself. So that's the way it goes.
That's exactly right. Mirror effect.
Well, it's very interesting the way that works, eh?
Very much
very
so.
Interesting. That's a very very powerful point too. Because that goes along with what we were talking about earlier about insecurity. A lot of people allow their own insecurities to get the best of them, but if they took the time to introspect within themselves, they'd understand that their insecurities often has a purpose, and influencing other people with their insecurities isn't necessarily the right thing to do.
Right. And when you mention that, Donnie, it's people won't look at their insecurities. All right, they have a hard time looking within themselves. There's a denial of the things that they know that aren't congruent to their soul being per se. And this is when they look outside themselves and look at other people's. Right, and this is a deflection per se of what's going on within themselves. And so it's an alleviation of pressure per se, right? When they in fact other people, right? And they're still holding the same stuff, okay, within them, right? And it's very interesting, you know. A lot of people are going right now through changes, of course, and a lot of shedding per se, and a lot of self-reflection per se. And I, you know, as a witness and as you know. Okay, I'll hold it at that. But it is fascinating.
And we're all going through this self-reflection and introspection and stuff like that. Even though we know we've gone through other stuff, but yet I still find myself going through that. I have to look at things. You know, I have to go inside and look at, okay, why is somebody triggering me? Why is my button being triggered? And what are they showing me that I don't like about myself?
Brenda?
So,
yes, this is the process right now.
Yeah, it is. And you know, if I'm going through it, if somebody else is going through it, we're all going through it on a certain level.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Cool.
Definitely.
It's awesomeness. You know, I was fortunate to be able to buy this ticket here, right? Because a lot of my friends, they want to experience this, and my etheric friends, right? And and then I go back and I share. You know, they share with me, and I share with them, and you know, they're happy.
Yeah. It's just, it's awesome. It's awesome. And what was your name again?
My name is Dennis.
Dennis, okay. Because I didn't think it was Yeah, Dennis. Well, thank you,
Dennis. Dennis Deitch, D-Y-C-H-E on Facebook. If you want to. Yeah, that's a plug. No,
that's a plug. I got that.
Yeah. No, I used to do a show here, and yeah, one of the shows was on excuses or reasons, and yeah, I've got the passion, that struck a chord with me when you started mentioning that, Donnie, and it was like for sure, people who make excuses, it's like I have no time for you, really, right? No, really,
yeah, really.
Yeah, whether or not you're going to fess up that you're making up a lie. All right, if you admit to that, once I see it, because I can see these things very easily, and all right, and then after that, it's like, all right, then we'll be good, all right, because you know where I'm coming from, right?
Yep.
That's for sure.
That's very true.
Right, I've held your time up. Sorry.
That's awesome, and thank you, Dennis. I appreciate your comments and coming on the show and talking to us.
Well, thank you again. You both hold wonderful energy. It's I wouldn't call if you didn't. So.
Oh, that means a lot to us.
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, and you're welcome. And I'll let you close out the show. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, be well. Thanks.
Be you too. Be well. Thank you.
Oh, that is one thing I love about this show. We get such amazing people.
Yes. Yes, we do. So,
okay.
With that said, I'm going to go back to the closing here. And our show next Sunday is going to be Cornucopia Identity. And we will see you then. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. And have a good week, everybody. Take care.